There are legends in professional wrestling, and then there's Ravishing Rick Rude, a man who embodied arrogance, athleticism, and pure charisma. With a body sculpted like a Greek god and a mouth that could tear down any opponent before they even stepped in the ring, Rude was one of the most captivating figures of his era. Whether he was insulting the crowd, flexing his muscles, or dominating in the ring, he commanded attention every time he stepped through the ropes. But behind the bravado and showmanship was a man whose life took a devastating turn. His wrestling career was on fire, and then, in one terrible moment, it all came crashing down. In 1994, during a match in Japan, one wrong landing caused a catastrophic injury, not only ending his in-ring career but setting him on a painful journey that would ultimately lead to his tragic death at just 40 years old. How did it all go so wrong? What happened in that match that left him permanently damaged? And what role did his injuries play in the events that led to his untimely passing? In this video, we'll explore the rise of Ravishing Rick Rude, the fateful moment that changed everything, and the heartbreaking final chapter of his life. His sudden death sent shockwaves through the wrestling industry, leaving behind unanswered questions that still linger today. Richard Irwin Rude was born on December 7, 1958, in St. Peter, Minnesota, and raised in Robbinsdale, a town that remarkably produced multiple future wrestling stars. Among his childhood friends were Kurt Hennig, Barry Darsow, John Nord, and Nikita Koloff, all of whom would later make their mark in professional wrestling. Growing up surrounded by talented and competitive athletes, Rude naturally developed a passion for sports and physical competition. Even as a teenager, Rude stood out. He was athletic, strong, and confident, excelling in wrestling, football, and weightlifting during high school. His imposing physique and natural charisma made him a formidable competitor. However, despite his natural ability, wrestling wasn't his original goal. Instead, he pursued higher education, enrolling at Anoka Ramsey Community College to study physical education, with ambitions of becoming a gym teacher or coach. After completing his degree, Rude sought work and landed a job as a bouncer at Grandma B's, a tough bar in Minneapolis. It was a job that required both physical strength and mental toughness. What seemed like a temporary way to make money turned out to be a life-changing moment. One of the bar's bartenders was Eddie Sharkey, a former wrestler and trainer who had already discovered and trained stars like Jesse Ventura and the Road Warriors. Sharkey immediately saw potential in Rude's physique and toughness, and encouraged him to give professional wrestling a shot. Taking Sharkey's advice seriously, Rude began training for the ring. He quickly picked up the fundamentals, showing a natural ability for both the athletic and entertainment aspects of the sport. By 1982, at just 24 years old, he made his professional wrestling debut under the name Ricky Rude. He started small, working in regional promotions, where he paid his dues, learned the craft, and developed his skills. His early days were spent in Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling, where he often competed against top-tier opponents like Sargent, Slaughter, and Greg Valentine. Though he frequently lost, these early experiences allowed him to develop his technique, psychology, and persona. By 1984, Rudy began refining his character, altering the spelling of his last name from Rude to Rude and fully embracing an arrogant, self-obsessed persona. His big break came in Memphis's Continental Wrestling Association, CWA, where Ravishing Rick Rude was born. Under the guidance of legendary manager Jimmy Hart, Rude's villainous persona reached new heights. He would mock the audience, flex his muscles, and exude an air of superiority that made fans despise him. His signature mustache, flamboyant, airbrushed tights, and slow, dramatic robe removal entrance became staples of his presentation. Fans loved to hate him, and his ability to generate intense crowd reactions turned him into a rising star. By 1985, Rude won his first major championship, the AWA Southern Heavyweight Championship, proving himself as a top-tier competitor. Shortly after, he moved to World Class Championship Wrestling, WCCW, where he feuded with the legendary Von Erich family and captured the American Heavyweight Championship. His impressive performances caught the attention of Jim Crockett Promotions, leading to his signing with the National Wrestling Alliance, NWA, in 1986. There, he partnered with Manny Fernandez, and together they won the NWA World Tag Team Championships, showcasing Rude's versatility as both a singles and tag team competitor. Despite his growing success, Rude wanted more. His combination of in-ring talent, charisma, and unmatched confidence made him the perfect fit for Vince McMahon's WWF. By 1987, he officially signed with WWF, setting the stage for his national breakthrough. Before we dive into Rick Rude's legendary WWF career, I'd love to ask for your support. I'm working towards reaching 1,000 subscribers, and every single subscription helps us keep making content like this. If you're enjoying the video so far, consider hitting that subscribe button. It really makes a difference. Alright, let's get back to it. Upon arriving in WWF in 1987, Rick Rude was immediately positioned as a top-tier heel. Vince McMahon saw the potential in his combination of arrogance, charisma, and physical presence, and Rude was placed under the management of Bobby the Brain Heenan. The pairing was perfect. Heenan was one of the best talkers in the business, and Rude was one of the most natural villains wrestling had ever seen. Together, they formed an alliance that made Rude one of the most despised men in professional wrestling. His entrance routine quickly became legendary. Before every match, he would grab the microphone and insult the audience, delivering his now iconic line, "What I'd like to have right now is for all you fat, out-of-shape sweat hogs to keep the noise down while I take my robe off and show your ladies what a real man looks like." The crowd erupted in boos, but Rude thrived on their hatred. He would then slowly remove his robe, revealing his sculpted physique as male fans jeered and female fans swooned. His entrance was a masterclass in psychology, immediately establishing him as a cocky, self-absorbed villain. However, Rude wasn't just about the show. He was an exceptional in-ring performer. He quickly became involved in some of WWF's most memorable feuds, proving that he could back up his arrogance with skill inside the ring. One of his first major feuds was against Jake the Snake Roberts. The rivalry turned deeply personal when Rude humiliated Roberts by airbrushing an image of Jake's wife Cheryl onto his tights. This act of disrespect sent Roberts into a rage, leading to an intense and heated feud that remains one of the best personal rivalries of the era. Then came Rude's career-defining rivalry, his battles with the Ultimate Warrior. Their feud began in 1989, with Rude challenging Warrior for the WWF Intercontinental Championship. At WrestleMania 5, in a shocking moment, Rude defeated the Ultimate Warrior to become Intercontinental Champion. This victory established Rude as more than just a loudmouth. He was a legitimate championship-caliber wrestler. His reign as Intercontinental Champion solidified him as a top-tier performer. His ability to have fast-paced, hard-hitting matches made him one of WWF's most reliable in-ring workers. He proved that he could carry less experienced wrestlers to great matches, elevating the prestige of the Intercontinental title. Rude would later challenge Hulk Hogan for the WWF Championship, proving that WWF saw him as a legitimate main event level performer. However, he never received a world title reign in WWF, something that many fans believe he deserved. By 1990, after a series of high-profile feuds, Rude became frustrated with his position in WWF. He believed he deserved to be pushed further, especially after his stellar performances. This frustration led him to leave WWF in 1991 and explore new opportunities. Little did he know, his greatest in-ring work was still ahead of him. After leaving WWF in 1991, Rick Rude took his talents to World Championship Wrestling WCW, where he found new opportunities and even greater success. Unlike his time in WWF, where he often played a top-tier villain but never reached the main event, WCW saw him as a true World Championship contender. Rude debuted in WCW in 1991 as the mystery member of Paul E. Dangerously's, Paul Heyman's faction, the Dangerous Alliance. This group, which also featured stunning Steve Austin, Arn Anderson, Larry Zbyszko, and Bobby Eaton, was a collection of some of the most talented wrestlers in WCW. Rude was immediately positioned as the faction's top star. Rude quickly won the WCW United States Heavyweight Championship, a title he elevated to main event status. His matches against Sting, Ricky Steamboat, and Dustin Rhodes were among the best of his career. He had a legendary feud with Steamboat, producing some of the greatest technical wrestling matches of the early 90s. His combination of power, agility, and heel psychology made him one of the most entertaining champions in WCW history. However, Rude wasn't just a star in the United States. He expanded his career internationally, particularly in New Japan Pro Wrestling, NJPW. In Japan, Rude adapted to the stiff, hard-hitting style of Japanese wrestling, earning respect from fans and wrestlers alike. Unlike many American wrestlers who struggled in Japan, Rude thrived in the environment, proving that he was more than just a charismatic performer. He was a world-class athlete. In 1993, Rude reached the pinnacle of his WCW career when he won the WCW International World Heavyweight Championship, a title that was considered equal to or even superior to the WCW World Heavyweight Championship at the time. His feuds with Ric Flair and Sting cemented him as a legitimate world champion. He was no longer just an intercontinental-level star. He was a bona fide main eventer. But just as Rude was at the peak of his career, tragedy struck. Everything seemed to be going perfectly for Ravishing Rick Rude. He was a world champion in WCW, a respected competitor in New Japan Pro Wrestling, and one of the biggest stars outside of WWF. But on May 1, 1994, at New Japan Pro Wrestling's Wrestling Dontaku event in Fukuoka, Japan, his career took a devastating turn. Rude was set to defend his WCW International World Heavyweight Championship against Sting, a familiar rival. The match was expected to be another classic, with two of WCW's best competitors battling for the prestigious title. But this match would unknowingly be Rude's last. During the bout, Sting performed a high-risk move, diving over the top rope to attack Rude outside the ring. Normally, this would have been a thrilling moment for the crowd, but the conditions in Japan were different. Unlike the padded floor mats used in WCW and WWF, NJPW rings had a raised platform surrounding them. When Rude caught Sting, the impact sent both men crashing onto the hard wooden platform. Rude's back took the full force of the fall, and the pain was immediate and excruciating. Something had gone horribly wrong. Despite being in agonizing pain, Rude refused to stop the match. He fought through it, even executing moves he rarely used, including a top rope knee drop, something he would later regret. Against all odds, Rude won the match and retained his championship, but at a devastating cost. Backstage, the reality of his injury set in. Doctors examined him and delivered the worst news possible. His spinal damage was severe, and continuing to wrestle could leave him permanently paralyzed. Rude was forced to vacate the WCW International World Heavyweight Championship just days later, and at only 35 years old, he had wrestled his final match. At first, Rude refused to accept his fate. He sought out multiple doctors, hoping for a different answer. But the verdict was always the same. His career was over. WCW offered him a non-wrestling role, possibly as a manager or commentator, but Rude wasn't interested. For him, wrestling wasn't just a job, it was his identity. Just like that, the Ravishing One was gone from the ring. After his devastating injury in 1994, Rick Rude faced a new challenge: life outside the ring. For over a decade, wrestling had been his entire world, and now, at just 35 years old, he was forced into an unexpected retirement. The transition was far from easy. He had the money, having been one of the highest-paid stars in WCW and WWF. But money wasn't what motivated him. What he truly missed was the competition, the adrenaline, and the spotlight. The thrill of stepping into the ring, hearing the roar of the crowd, and proving he was one of the best was now gone. At first, Rude disappeared from the public eye, choosing to focus on his wife Michelle and their children. After years of constant travel, he was finally home. But deep down, something was missing. He had always prided himself on being in top physical condition, and the thought of never competing again didn't sit well with him. Determined to stay in peak shape, Rude trained obsessively, despite the constant pain from his injury. He ignored warnings from doctors, believing he could somehow overcome his condition and return to wrestling. His body had other plans. As rumors swirled about a possible comeback, some believed he was considering a role as a manager or trainer. Others thought he might defy the odds and wrestle again. But every time he pushed himself too hard, his body reminded him of the harsh reality: he would never be the same. Then in 1997, Rude shocked the wrestling world by making a surprise return to TV. Not as a wrestler, but as an enforcer for D-Generation X, DX, in WWF. Fans were thrilled to see him back, even in a non-wrestling role. His tough, no-nonsense persona made him a perfect fit for the rebellious faction, standing alongside Shawn Michaels, Triple H, and Chyna. But Rude wasn't happy. He wanted more control over his career, and when he realized he had been working without a contract, he saw an opportunity. On November 17, 1997, Rude made history by becoming the first wrestler to appear on both WWF Raw and WCW Nitro on the same night. Since Raw was pre-taped, he was able to jump ship to WCW and appear live on Nitro, aligning himself with the New World Order, NWO. The move was unprecedented, fueling the heated Monday Night Wars between WWF and WCW. Back in WCW, Rude worked as a manager and commentator, often appearing alongside his longtime friend Curt Hennig. But things weren't the same. His injuries never fully healed, and watching from the sidelines only made things harder. By 1999, he had quietly left WCW, once again stepping away from the business. Even as he faded from television, Rude wasn't done yet. He began training harder than ever, fueling speculation that he was planning one last comeback. Some believed he was in talks with WWF about returning in a non-wrestling role, while others thought he was considering joining ECW, known for its hard-hitting, extreme style. Many wondered, could Rude defy the odds and return to the ring? But just as he was preparing for the next chapter of his life, tragedy struck. By 1999, Ravishing Rick Rude was at a crossroads. His wrestling career had ended years earlier due to a devastating back injury, but he couldn't fully walk away from the business. He had spent years as a manager and enforcer in both WWF and WCW, but nothing truly satisfied him. The adrenaline, competition, and performance were missing from his life, and he struggled to find purpose outside the ring. Despite being retired from in-ring action, Rude never stopped training. He remained in incredible shape and was reportedly in talks with WWF about returning in a non-wrestling role. Some rumors suggested he was considering a move to Extreme Championship Wrestling, ECW, a promotion known for its hard-hitting, hardcore style. Others believed he was training for one last match, hoping to defy the odds and step into the ring one final time. But there was one major problem: his health. Even though Rude still looked like a Greek god, the reality was far different. His back injury had never fully healed, and the pain was something he dealt with every single day. Like many wrestlers of his generation, he relied on prescription painkillers just to get through the day. Throughout the 1980s and 1990s, wrestling was a brutal industry with little regard for injury management or wrestler well-being. Wrestlers were expected to perform night after night, often ignoring severe pain to keep their spot on the roster. Many turned to muscle relaxers, painkillers, and other substances to cope with the constant wear and tear. For Rude, the situation was no different. One of the substances found in his system was gamma-hydroxybutyrate, GHB. This drug had gained popularity in the 1990s for both medical and recreational use. Originally used to treat sleep disorders, GHB was also known as a performance-enhancing drug in bodybuilding circles. Some wrestlers took it to help with muscle recovery, while others used it to combat pain and insomnia. However, when mixed with other medications, GHB could be dangerous, even deadly. Despite these risks, Rude continued pushing himself. He trained like an athlete, looked like a wrestler, and wanted to be part of the business again. But in April 1999, his body couldn't take it anymore. On April 20th, 1999, tragedy struck. Rude was at his home in Alpharetta, Georgia, when his wife, Michelle, found him unresponsive. Paramedics were called, but there was nothing they could do. At just 40 years old, Ravishing Rick Rude was gone. An autopsy later revealed that Rude had died of heart failure, caused by a lethal combination of medications. His system contained a mix of painkillers, muscle relaxers, and GHB. a deadly cocktail that his body simply couldn't handle. Whether Rude intentionally took too much or if it was a tragic accident remains unclear. Some believed he was simply trying to manage his pain, unaware of how lethal the combination was. Others speculated he may have underestimated the strength of the drugs, pushing his body too far. His friends and colleagues were shocked but not entirely surprised. Many knew he had been struggling with pain for years. Like so many wrestlers from his era, he had been part of a business that didn't prioritize the health of its performers. There was no structured wellness policy, no proper medical care for long-term injuries, and little education about the dangers of painkillers and muscle relaxers. As with many wrestling deaths, Rude's passing sparked speculation. Some people refused to believe it was an accident. A few conspiracy theories suggested that Rude had been intentionally given tainted medication, or that he had made powerful enemies in the wrestling world who wanted him silenced. However, no concrete evidence has ever supported these claims. Bruce Pritchard, a longtime wrestling personality, later revealed that Rude's widow, Michelle, strongly denied any claims that Rude had taken his own life. According to her, the evidence pointed to a tragic accident, a mix of medications that proved to be fatal. Some speculated that Rude had been training so hard for a comeback, he may have ignored warning signs from his body. If he truly believed he could return to the ring, would he have knowingly taken something so dangerous? It's possible that he underestimated the strength of the drugs, not realizing how deadly the combination could be. Regardless of the theories, one thing was clear: wrestling had lost another legend far too soon. Even though Ravishing Rick Rude's life was tragically cut short, his impact on wrestling remains undeniable. He was more than just a wrestler. He was a master of psychology, a showman who could control the crowd, and a technician who backed up his arrogance with skill. Rude set a new standard for heels. His charisma, athleticism, and arrogance made him one of the greatest villains in wrestling history. Superstars like Triple H, Dolph Ziggler, and MJF have cited him as an inspiration, incorporating his style into their own characters. His airbrushed tights, methodical movements, and ability to provoke emotion remain influential today. Beyond character work, Rude was a trailblazer in combining power and technical wrestling. His matches with Ricky Steamboat, Ultimate Warrior, and Sting showed his ability to elevate his opponents. Many believe Rude carried Warrior to some of his best matches, proving his ability to make others look great. In 2017, WWE inducted him into the Hall of Fame, cementing his legacy. His natural charisma, in-ring skill, and iconic persona ensure his name will never fade from wrestling history. Even today, his influence lives on every time a wrestler flexes, taunts the audience, or delivers a cocky promo. What was Ravishing Rick Rude's greatest moment? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss our next wrestling deep dive.